This first tip is most useful in the early game when you're farming in houses and ducking in and out of doors, but can also come in handy whenever you're using your pickaxe to break things throughout the game. The premise is to switch to your pickaxe or a weapon to cancel an animation that forces you to walk for a short period of time. You can cancel your pickaxe swing animation after you hit, allowing you to immediately run after your last hit. You can even use it to cancel the animation of opening doors, so you can immediately run after opening one. Remember though, you'll need a weapon to be able to do this. In order to do this tip a little bit more easily, you should make sure that sprint by default is toggled on, and then you have a key binded to toggle harvester instead of just harvester in your keybinds. This will make sure that you'll be sprinting as soon as possible, and it'll save you a few key presses, as double tapping the toggle harvester key to cancel the animation and swap back to the pickaxe pretty much instantly. It's super easy to execute once you get the concept, and can speed up your early looting and farming process quite a bit. When doing this, you'll be able to hit furniture and farm mats while moving, and save a bit of time with each hit. Even saving just a couple of seconds could mean the difference between being able to choose when to engage and getting caught off guard by an opponent. Something that you may notice from watching this clip that you should know is that this tip only saves you time if you stay on the move. If you're breaking furniture that is placed next to each other, it'll be better if you just swing normally. This next tip is a minor way to optimize your movement, especially in the early game. You can use pyramids to get through windows of certain buildings that you wouldn't be able to walk through otherwise. You may have seen streamers like Nick and Mercs use this to his advantage in Tilted Towers, but that's not the only place this trick can be used. You can also use it in other places like Westworld, Viking Village, Polar Peak, and more. Pretty much, it works with most windows that look similar to the one shown here. Other than for optimizing looting paths in the early game, you can also use this trick to confuse your opponents by seamlessly weaving in and out of windows that you can't normally walk through and repositioning to a spot they wouldn't expect. This next tip is more combat oriented and allows you to wall replace or take control of an opponent's wall in an unexpected way. Shout out to TSM Myth, the first player we saw using this trick. The trick takes advantage of the fact that you can hit a structure through something else if you can still see the blue circle. You can use this mechanic to destroy somebody's wall, even if you are behind another structure. Essentially, you hit their build to get the blue circle, move back and build your own structure, acting like you're going to take a different angle, then target the blue circle to destroy their wall through your build, followed by replacing their build with your own. It takes a little bit of practice to get the movement down swiftly, but it shouldn't be too difficult overall. This trick doesn't necessarily guarantee a wall replace, especially if they're still holding onto turbo build. What it does do is lull your opponents into a false sense of security, so they let go of turbo build, allowing you to destroy and replace the wall with your own. Launch pads are a great mobility item for making hard rotations and disengaging from tight situations, but they do have a downside. Other players can follow you. This means that your opponents can also get free rotations from your pad, or if you disengage, you'll probably only get away for a few seconds before they catch up. The simple solution to these problems is to destroy your launch pad as you use it. This does not mean use it, land, then shoot it out, but rather destroy your pad immediately after you use it, so nobody can follow, no matter how quick. You can do this one of two ways, shooting or editing. Editing is a little more reliable, but they both work similarly well. When you're in the air right before you land on the launch pad, you want to destroy the platform that is holding your pad up. If you're using a gun, then get the supporting platform to one shot, then finish it off before you land. For editing, edit the supporting platform so it's no longer connected. Then confirm the edit before landing on your pad. This last one is another combat-oriented tip. Let's say you're trying to turtle and somebody is spamming your walls relentlessly. Although most players feel vulnerable when they're getting spammed, the opponent who is spamming is also extremely vulnerable. Instead of just turbo building and hoping they stop, you can trade shots and put pressure back on them relatively easily. In these situations, wait for them to destroy your wall, then hit back with a quick shotgun shot before replacing your wall again. If you get the timing down, this is a pretty easy way to make an opponent think twice about carelessly spraying your builds. The first trick we're going to cover is the most basic of all 5, but is still an essential tool in every top player's repertoire. Blocking other players with pyramids is something every top player does, and for good reason. First, it completely stops the other player's forward momentum in a build battle, forcing them to stop and break through the pyramid or turn and take another path up. This split second of hesitation is typically all you need to retake high ground, as long as you're fast. You can also use this trick to block a player and get a decent shot while they're trying to figure out how to react, or even trap kill them from underneath. While the concept and muscle memory for this trick might take a little time to learn, the execution is relatively easy. If someone ramps above you, take out your pyramid and aim at about 2/3 of the way up the ramp. This will allow you to place a pyramid above that ramp. The window for placing this pyramid is pretty forgiving, even more so when you jump, so it shouldn't be too hard to learn. After blocking them, you have a few options. You could turn to retake height, jump to the side for a shotgun shot, or try to trap kill them. Now you might be thinking, what if the player who ramps above me places a floor under their ramp, blocking me from placing the pyramid? This is a valid concern, but top players have already adapted. To counter this, you need to place the floor yourself before they have the chance. Then you can edit a corner to give yourself the angle you need to place a pyramid above them. This next trick was popularized by pro player Ghost3fo, hence the name. We love this strat for retaking high ground, as it's effective and typically unexpected. In one of our previous videos, we showed a strat where you place a cone on a ramp above you when ramping up to retake high ground in order to block somebody who might be following. This is sort of the evolution of that, because the 3fo cone blocks an enemy immediately above you, while also hindering enemies 2 levels above. This trick is a little harder to execute. The concept is simple. When ramping to retake height, turn and place a wall on your top ramp, then a pyramid above that. The pyramid is essential because it blocks players 2 levels above from placing a ramp in that spot. Here are a couple of tips for executing this trick. First, in order to maintain as much forward momentum as possible, you need to jump and do a 180, build the wall/pyramid, then turn back before landing. This may take some practice to master at full speed. When practicing, make sure you see the wall place before switching to your pyramid. If you get too antsy, you'll end up blocking yourself off. And when you turn back around after doing this trick, make sure you're looking down far enough to place a ramp below you. It's pretty easy to miss the bottom ramp after this trick and fall down. As always, there is a slightly more advanced version of this trick. After turning and placing the wall, it's possible to place a pyramid on the opposite side of that wall, as well as right above you. This not only stops a player 2 levels above from continuing to ramp up, but it physically blocks them with a pyramid as well, stopping their momentum. In order to place a pyramid on the opposite side of that wall, you need to jump and place your cursor slightly above the wall. It's a pretty precise spot, and note that if you accidentally place the pyramid above you first, you won't have an angle to place the other one, which is what makes this trick especially precise. Another slightly easier way to achieve the same effect is to turn and place a ramp with a cone on top. Credit to Nep Alchemist on Reddit for bringing this to our attention. If you want to make it even harder for the enemy to get around that, you can place 3 total pyramids instead of 1, blocking each side as well. Here's what it looks like from the side to show you just how disruptive this trick can be. This third trick is the most difficult in the entire video. Even in a controlled environment, our writer and Fortnite Master, FaintXO, still has quite a bit of trouble pulling this one off consistently. Nevertheless, the trick is effective and will definitely catch your opponents off guard. Credit to this insane Japanese player Riley for showing this is humanly possible. On to the explanation. This trick is essentially a super complicated version of the side jump that allows you to block the player above you with a pyramid. First, for this even to be possible, you need to make sure you're placing a floor at the top of your ramp to block yourself before the other player, who presumably has height advantage, can block you. This is a good habit in general because it allows you more options like editing through, so you should try getting used to it if you haven't already. Here's where it gets hard. Edit one side of your floor and place a wall above you on the side of the pyramid. The angle to build this wall is pretty narrow, so play around with it. It helps if you turn almost 90 degrees to get the wall placement into the side jump. Now for the jump. You will need to be at somewhat of an awkward angle, but you need to execute this almost perfectly because you need the height to place a pyramid on the opposite side of the wall you just built. The angle for this is the same as the more advanced version of the 3fo cone. Your cursor needs to be slightly above the wall in order to get the pyramid on the opposite side. The caveat is that you need to do this all while in mid-air after a side jump that has to be pretty well executed to even get the angle. Then, after placing the pyramid, quickly catch yourself with the floor. This trick gives you the height advantages of a normal side jump, protection while making the jump, and the ability to block your opponent at the same time. The only problem is that this will take a lot of practice to execute at full speed because of how insanely difficult it is. This fourth trick is definitely easier than the last, but useful nonetheless. Let's say you're trying to retake high ground with ramps above and below you. Most players will try to block you off or wait for you to turn and then shoot you. Instead of walking into either of those situations, this trick lets you turn around in an unexpected way to keep ramping up. When you want to make the turn, place one more ramp above you, turn and jump to the side, placing a floor beneath you and another connected floor. Then proceed to ramp up in the opposite direction, taking the height with 90s or whatever suits you. Not many players do this, so it would likely confuse most players you go up against, allowing you to retake height or regain the advantage through unpredictability. This last trick is something we've been seeing a handful of pro players start to do. Instead of the conventional side jump or turning to ramp up after getting blocked, some players have been simply begun to sidestep to keep their momentum and continue ramping up. This can come in handy in a couple of situations, like build fights where you get blocked, or even pushing somebody who has high ground. Credit to Exalted on YouTube for bringing this to our attention. The trick itself is simple. When you're ramping up with a wall in front, just connect another wall on the side, place a ramp, and continue building up. The angle for connecting the second wall to the side can be a bit tricky, but it helps if you look slightly down and to the right or left, depending on which direction you're sidestepping. Again, you can do this quickly when someone blocks you with a floor/pyramid. It could also be considered an evolution of the typical high ground ramp push, which is just ramping up with pyramids and editing through them. Using this trick, you can go back and forth between the two ramps when pushing for high ground. And if you add pyramids into the mix, it gives you cover from shots, making you harder to track, and gives you more options overall.